House Republicans passed their version of a budget bill as Senate leaders vote to control who runs the DMV. And voters, you could decide multiple state constitutional amendments. This is State Lines.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting PBS NC.
Welcome back to State Lines. I'm Kelly McCullen. Joining me today, to my right, Public Relations Consultant Pat Ryan, Representative Maria Cervania of Wake County, Representative Alan Chesser of Nash County, and WPTF Radio host Steve Rao occupies seat 4. Hello, everyone. A lot of topics. They accuse us of never getting through the entire show because we stick on one topic too long. Maybe this week, because I want to talk about this House budget. The State House and Senate budget stalled out about 2 weeks ago. It seems publicly that no deal on any new budget is a likely outcome. So House Republicans passed their version of a budget bill this week, something promised by State House Speaker Tim Moore. The budget bill would spend $31.7 billion. It would offer $135 million towards supporting child care services called the Child Care Cliff. State employees would get an extra 1 percentage point of a pay raise over what's currently scheduled. And starting teacher pay would rise to $44,000 a year. Representative Chesser from $39,000. That's just a few of the highlights. That's what the headlines grabbed, kind of reaching that. How many pages is it? Hundreds of pages of bill. And out comes the budget. Why pass a House budget when the Senate says, if you do it, we're not going to look at it?
Well, I think it's just part of a normal negotiating process. Obviously, negotiations behind closed doors fell apart. And so just fall back to what the process normally is, where the House passes their version, the Senate passes their version, and hopefully we get into a conference committee report on it. If not, we do have a budget. It's important to understand that this is not a budget. This is a budget correction or an adjustment of a budget. The budget already exists. We passed that last year. So it's just laying our priorities out, and so a continuation of the conversation, putting it out in the public, let the public see where the negotiations are, and go from there.
Representative Cervania, what could be, what should be, what might be? What do you say from the Democratic side?
So I do agree with my colleague that it is a good effort to go forward because we need to actually have that conversation and bring everybody to the table. I think that our chamber had done that, and it's been good. We now have a Senate version, and hopefully it does bring it into conference. But I will say with the top topics that you had talked about, 1% increase in state employee raises, that doesn't even match inflation. And so I don't even know how our state employees are accepting that in terms of, is it really an increase in salary? $44,000 as a base salary for a teacher doesn't even, in many of our counties, even meet the median income of that county. And here in Wake County, it's $20,000, if not more, below the median average income. So if we're trying to actually keep our state employees, keep our teachers, we need to do better. So ultimately, this is not a budget that's serving our North Carolinians.
Said like a good Democrat, Pat. But you know what? This budget debate, so many bills, I can listen to the Republican and go, yeah. And I listen to the Democrat and I can go, yeah. But they can't get together. Now, I won't say they can't. They won't get together. Why not?
Well, it's kind of a tale as old as time. For, 10 years now, maybe, the House has traditionally been the body that wants to spend a bit more. The Senate has been the body that wants to spend quite a bit less. I would just say that for the last 13 years, the state of North Carolina has been one of the healthiest fiscal states in the country because of low taxes and low spending that the majority has put forward. The result is supermajorities in both chambers, best state for business 2 years running. That's the philosophical argument on the Senate side. And I think there's sort of a convergence of interests here that may point towards no budget adjustment at all as sort of the most rational outcome here. Senator Berger will have a new speaker to negotiate with next year. Obviously, there won't be $1 billion more in spending, which is one of the Senate's priorities. So I think all signs are sort of pointing towards maybe the outcome here is not much happens for the rest of the year.
But Republicans went out with a list of school vouchers. They wanted to address the child care cliff. They got their voters ginned up and excited about the legislative agenda, and then so easily just goes, no deal, we're going home. And are you playing your voters with that?
No, I don't know that it's easy to say that. There are certainly trade-offs inherent in that. I think that the global question is, remember, next year's spending figure will be based on this year's spending figure. And so there's more than just, a 1-year difference in spending $500 million more. It sort of cascades throughout the years and the decades. So it's a big philosophical question of just the amount of spending and growth in the state budget that historically the Senate has been trying to be as lean as possible, and so this is just a continuation of that.
Steve, what's your take? You're locally elected. You're around all sorts of movers and shakers from town level all the way up to Congress. How hard is a deal to reach, and is it okay sometimes to walk away and say the best deal is no deal?
Well, I think, first of all, I agree with Representative Cervania. I just think the costs, from housing and groceries and gas is just so much higher to deal with that. I mean, I went to the grocery store recently. I paid $12 for a box of cereal, $75 just 4 or 5 items. So you think about $44,000, is that enough to live on, to recruit the best teachers? I think at the end of the day, I tend to be an optimist. I think that some of the things I like is, promoting, $135 million for child care, the fact that they do want to increase pay for teachers. And I think, where can you invest this $1 billion of surplus for North Carolinians? So walking away from it, I would like to see the legislature focus more on education, training. Just a few weeks ago, I hosted John Chambers, former CEO of Cisco, to talk about AI and the aggressive, rapid pace of innovation. And the thing that John said that was really troublesome to all of us is how quickly AI is displacing jobs faster than we can replenish them, and how important it is for companies and community colleges and even K-12 to educate folks for the jobs of the future. So I would like to see this General Assembly say, how do we do that? And I think there's a lot of things we can come together on. So hopefully, this is the fun part's the sausage making, right? I'm not in the General Assembly, but hopefully compromise is in the works and we can see a budget that makes sense for all North Carolinians.
Representative Chesser, without a budget, would there be any appetite for taking the high-level items that were so discussed by your leaders, setting with standalone bills, finding a way to fund them in the absence of an overall state budget bill adjustment?
I think that's the whole point, is being in on every conversation. We should probably mark down this episode, though, because I think for once you've got all 4 panelists in agreement that the Biden economy is not doing well in prices and inflation. That's what I've just heard, is everyone's complaining about inflation and not being able to keep up with it. And I think everybody agrees with that on this panel.
I think it's an excellent point, Representative.
Oh, I do not agree.
The email machine cranks up if you mention the words Biden and Trump on this show. And
You're welcome.
But inflation is a real deal. $12 for a box of cereal, Steve. I thought $7 for a box of Cheerios was a lot.
But I will have to give a plug-in for the president. Unemployment's at 3.5%.
No.
And inflation starts not only in this 2-year time frame, but
I knew it. We have Washington Week in Review. Watch that show for that kind of analysis. Well, there's no hurry to adjust our state's budget. There could be a rush to authorize state constitutional amendments in time for the 2024 ballot, Representative Cervania. Republicans in the House want a state constitutional amendment clarifying that only U.S. citizens can vote. We could see a constitutional amendment addressing voter identification. And Senate Republicans could be preparing an amendment that would lower the maximum cap on North Carolina's income tax rate. Credit to WREL and Raleigh, Representative Cervania. They say the details of the tax cap still privately discussed within the GOP ranks. You're not in those meetings. I would be willing to bet a nickel on that. But 3 constitutional amendments, as if we need more fuel to make us turn out in 2024.
You can have a whole show on these 3 constitutional amendments, but I'm going to try to hit it.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. But I will try to hit the highlights. So photo ID. Representative Chesser and I are on Oversight and Reform, and we brought in Director Brinson Bell in. Voter ID fraud, or cases that are against what the fair and correct elections would be, were 10 out of the 8 million registered voters. 10 substantiated cases. So I'm going to do quick math here. That's 0.0000000% that were substantiated cases of all suspected voter fraud. And that doesn't isolate for voter ID. So I'm not sure what we're trying to do here when it comes to voter ID. Let's go to American citizens being the only people eligible to vote. Let's be clear, our constitutional law says that American citizens are the only people who can vote. And in the past 10 years that I've been involved or living in North Carolina, I've not heard of any efforts, local, county, state level, of wanting any elections having any other people be able to be eligible to vote. In the past 10 years, our Republican Party has been the majority.
What about the other one, tax cap?
Okay, but let me finish that point first.
Okay.
If we ever have an election anywhere in North Carolina that allows non-American citizens to vote, I would have to question the Republican Party. We're in a Dillon rule state. The state legislature, it would have to go through our state legislation. I'm not sure that would even happen. So last on the income tax. 7% to 5%. And it goes back to the budget. We are not bringing in a surplus. In fact, our revenues coming in from our taxes are lower than in history, where we have a reserve that was $200 million, like in the billions, actually, I should say, in at least $2 billion, if not more, to now we're projecting it to be $98 million to be reserved. We are not bringing in revenue. And now we're going to lower our cap of income tax from 7% to 5%. It's as if we're putting all our bills underneath a bed and ignoring it, and then getting a job to earn less to pay for those bills.
Look right at Representative Chester. You're eyeing me with that. This is his team.
And then taking any money, taking any money that we have to go to the country club to pay for those kids' private
Oh, boy.
schools.
All right, Representative Chester, the floor is yours. You can pick which one of these three.
Well, first, let's just talk about the process by which why you would bring something up. It's not unusual. It's not the first time that we have brought our state constitution to align with the federal constitution. As far, in this case, this would be with voting rights. And what we've done is the voters have already decided that they want this. It's a constitutional amendment as is. We're just expanding upon what the voters have said they wanted. And when you get to the tax portion of it, again, a legislature cannot pass anything that limits the ability of a future legislature, but the people of the state can. And so what we're trying to do is give the people of the state the opportunity to say how high they want their tax burden to be in the future. And so I support the people of the state. If they don't want it, they can vote it down. If they want it, we'll have it.
Yeah, so just jump in there. So I think it's an excellent point, Representative Chester. I know, Steve, you want to jump in here too. So on the question of the tax rate, I believe we've had something like 8 or 9, barring COVID, consecutive budget surpluses.
Yeah.
And
we still have one, even though our spending is higher than it's ever been.
Right.
We're still having surpluses. The surpluses may be smaller.
So I think that may suggest that we're taxing too much instead of spending too little. But in my mind, sort of these constitutional amendment questions come down to really a basic question of what kind of democracy we want to have. Because the Constitution isn't my Constitution, it's not your Constitution or yours, it's the people's document that decides how they're governed. All of these potential amendments poll above 70%, some in the 80s. And so if that volume and proportion of the people of this state would like to see those words added to their governing document, it seems to me that they should have the chance to do so.
Steve.
All I need is a minute on this. I think that, my biggest concern, I love political theater, right? Most of the theaters are closing, but I love watching this kind of thing going on. But I think that at the end of the day, to me, my problem with it is that it doesn't make sense. If it's already illegal in North Carolina to ban voting, for non-citizens to vote, then I don't really see the necessity of amending the Constitution, And so I think that we should just, and also the income tax as well. It could be that, and the concern I have is that if the court decisions don't work in the favor of what the Republicans want, they can amend the Constitution, and then they can have the supreme law of the land. So I'm fine with making amendments, but I think we have to look at the policies behind them and make sure that it's really what we want to do at this time. But
I would just point out one quick rebuttal is it's not the legislature that amends the Constitution, it's the people.
It's the people, yeah.
It's the people that amend the Constitution. We can't amend it.
So you
we
put it to a
simply
vote.
put it on the ballot and let the people amend it if they choose to.
What are we amending?
Yeah,
when it's already on our
that's a good point.
Constitution that American citizens are the only people who can vote in our elections. What are we amending?
The state constitution.
It is in the Constitution.
It's already in there, though.
It's already in the state constitution.
Well, if it goes to the ballot, we'll have, if all three go to the ballot, to your point, this where PBS North Carolina can shine. We can deep dive on to proposed constitutional
We'll see what
amendments.
the people decide.
Let the
Yes.
people vote. Yeah. Well, senators who are fed up with customer service at North Carolina's Division of Motor Vehicles have successfully approved House legislation to allow them to confirm future DMV leaders. The state transportation secretary hires DMV commissioners. The bill would make governors submit a commissioner for Senate approval. Democrats and the Cooper administration opposed the idea. Legislators can't hire the DOT secretary. Steve, the DMV commissioner, works for the Secretary of Transportation, who can't be affected by anything legislators want to do. How does it work?
Well, I mean, I think, if we're going to go put appointees through confirmation processes, that's fine. But I think before we do that, we have to look at the reasons why. In my opinion, first of all, I want to thank the hardworking people of DMV, the state employees. They work very hard. And there are areas where DMV, in my opinion, has gotten better. Cary, Durham DMVs I've been to, along with Representative Cervania, they've been run really effectively. You can get your vehicle registration inspection done at the same time. So I think the most important thing is to look at the staffing levels and also the process. So I think the first thing is that I disagree with Senator Lazara to say that, well, you're making this person now report to the Senate, whoever the DMV commissioner is for the next governor is going to solve the problem. I think you have to look at the process, and that's on the Secretary of Technology. So whoever the next governor picks, I think you have to look at the drawing board of how do you make process better. The only thing I'll add to that before I let my other colleagues talk is that I think part of that process is automation and technology. I mean, we need to have an AI strategy in North Carolina. We can use predictive analytics to get you.
But we're talking about the DMV, hiring the DMV commissioner. And I get technology and I get the plug for the DMV. But somebody's telling these senators that they're not happy with their local DMV office. That's just a fact.
But if they're not happy with the local DMV office, it's up to the Secretary of Technology to put the processes in place and have the commissioners that can do this. And you have to have the staffing levels adequate. I don't think it's fair to just to point the finger. You got to look at the culture of the organization and the process. That's all I'm saying.
But you know how easy doing that is? I can point at you. I'll point at you. Pat, what's the deal with DMV? I mean, we all need DMV. We all like to drive. They do a great service for the state. And yes, in fairness, people do talk about their local DMV office for being slow.
Sure. I mean, it's to me, I don't see this as big of a controversy as it's being made out to be. Senate confirmation of important executive positions is very common in federal government. It's been in North Carolina government for the last 8 years. And the DMV has some major issues. So to me, legislators, I think, see a potential avenue to add another layer of accountability to the organization using something that's relatively common, Senate confirmation of appointees. But
Democrats, Mr. Cervania may say that's another layer of something. It's not accountability. We can describe it in other ways. But however, it is a proposed solution to what is a perceived problem that senators and some House members are hearing about.
So 2 things on this. Let's have a civics lesson here. We have 3 branches of government, and we're a legislature, and the DMV is under the governor's executive branch in a very low, many layers underneath the Department of Transportation. So we need to look at what we're really trying to do. But it goes back to process. And when you and the end user and what their experience is. You don't solve that by having the Senate appoint the commissioner of DMV. You solve it by process mapping, look at the whole business model of DMV, and trying to benchmark, mark improvements, make solutions.
And this is going to continue. We have growing state, more and more people coming in. So how do we staff it and provide that customer service?
Well, think about this, Representative Chesser. If I go to DMV and it takes them an hour and a half to get my driver's license renewed, I can just call your office up and complain to you because wouldn't it be your fault, right?
Well, so this is actually interesting because they brought up process and a civics lesson. And so what this would actually do is give the appointment to the governor, who by default has the authority to make the appointment because the Secretary of Transportation is an arm and an extension of the governor. And so when you're looking at process, let's look at what's happened with the lack of process currently. Our DMV commissioner now violates state law and assumes that the legislature would be amenable to a law change after the violation occurs because he doesn't have any accountability within the General Assembly at all. So he takes what I believe is a gross misreading of a current law, exempts himself and his department from state procurement processes and continues to violate law, I mean, including the Real ID Act. That's federal law, that's not even state law. And I think if there is this extra layer of accountability where he does come to the General Assembly for confirmation, then he'll build relationships within that building and want to talk to us prior to violating the law to get a law changed.
I'll give you last word on this. It's your topic.
So Representative Chester is not including the fact it is a governor's appointment, but the Senate has to appoint it. So it's not exclusively
Appointment and confirmation
To
are two
confirm it.
completely separate things.
Confirms the
Yes.
governor's choice.
Right.
But why? When there's that's multiple layers where let's trust our Department of Transportation Secretary to be able to do that. Yeah. But I'm going to go back to process. We have general counsel, we have different checks and balances. We need to bring in people when they're not abiding by law. I get that. But there was a correction on that. There's a law process happening in place to make a correction on what you are describing. And we need to trust in our processes when it comes to state law to handle those things. We can't pinpoint it on just one person because they did that. There's many parts of this process that might have faltered.
Yeah. All right. Well, the House passed legislation last week, maybe the week before, to unanimously ban a drug that's commonly called gas station heroin. And while they were at it, they were trying to rewrite some laws to regulate hemp-derived products that are currently legal and for sale. The Senate raised the ante this week by, yes, doing all of that, but including medical marijuana legalization in the legislation before passing it. The medical marijuana issue has long been supported by Senate Rules Chairman Republican Bill Rabin. House Speaker Tim Moore has said in the past there aren't enough Republican votes to pass medical marijuana. But I will say, Pat Ryan, if you just bring it to a floor vote, I'm willing to bet there's a majority of the House would approve it.
Yeah, I'm a medical marijuana hardliner here. To me, first of all, medical marijuana polls through the roof. It's like an 85% issue. Majorities of all parties support it. But second, and sort of more personal to me, the sponsor of the bill, Senator Bill Rabin, should have been dead 25 years ago. He had a very, very serious form of cancer. He underwent a brutal regimen of treatment. So if anybody has earned the right to have some credibility on this question, to me, it's Bill Rabin. So it's wildly popular among voters, right? In my opinion, it's the right thing to do. And the person leading the charge knows firsthand how debilitating some of these illnesses can be. So add it all together, and I'm extremely pro medical marijuana.
As a policy discussion, then we can go into opinions of what marijuana means. It means different things to different families, and I won't say addiction for marijuana, of course not, but it's all a personal journey with that. Bill Rabin's personal journey has moved medical marijuana to the forefront of the very conservative Senate majority, Representative Cervania. Your thoughts on this as a policy? Put something that Republicans all want to ban, and you add something to legalize that they say they can't pass.
Right. I mean, this, I think, is the topic that we're probably all going to agree upon. And it's a benefit for our state in so many ways. I mean, if people have concerns about the quality, the ability to help people in usage, why not work together on making sure that we have boards and scientists who are able to make sure that we have a good product that will help many people like Senator Rabin with their health issues, their health conditions. Also, it's an economic development driver. Like, we are trying to transition some of our agriculture into different spaces. This could be an option for them as well. And then also, there's an argument about taxation. This could bring in a level of income for North Carolina.
Representative Chester, a Wake County vote from a Wake County representative will be an easy one because the population here would probably be more progressive than, say, down east or over in the eastern part of the state. What would your voters say about this medical marijuana legalization? When I was a kid, it would be heretical. And I go back to the country, I don't feel that way about it anymore, but that doesn't mean anything.
Well, it was, I don't know if you guys know this, I had a pretty heated primary, and the two issues that I was attacked on was my support of medical cannabis and my supposed, which is accurate, support of the casino legislation. But I still got 2/3 of the vote. This is not the issue that voters are going to vote against conservative Republicans for. Now, Will it upset some of the base? Probably. But I think it's an opportunity, and it's incumbent upon me right now to dispel some of the rumors that are being used against it, which is that this is a gateway to recreational. Absolutely not. Since 2012, and that number is important because that's where the statistic 22 a day comes from with veteran suicides. That's why I focus on 2012. But since 2012, 24 states have legalized, medical cannabis. Only 2 since then have gone to recreational, and both of those through ballot initiative, which is not present in North Carolina. If you wanted to transfer from medical to recreational, you would have to come back through the General Assembly to do so in North Carolina.
Steve, last word. We have about 1 minute.
Yeah, I think the other issue I would talk about is, crime and, the investment of police resources. I think, legalizing marijuana would help us focus our police officers not on arresting people for marijuana, but gun violence, the terrible violence we've seen. Revenue, tax revenue would be great, and entrepreneurship. I mean, former Governor Perdue's son, I think Garrett Perdue formed a cannabis company. So at the end of the day, I think we're all in agreement. Let's legalize marijuana. For the gas station heroin, I think opioids, we got to go after it hard. 28,000 North Carolinians have died from opioid. Attorney General Stein negotiated a lot of settlements. So I agree. Let's make that happen.
Final word. Does Bill Rabin finally get his medical marijuana pass? Is this enough?
I think so.
Oh, all right.
Well, I hope so.
There you go. Well, thank you, Pat, Maria, Alan, Steve. Thank you so much for being on the show. And more importantly, thank you for watching us here on State Lines. Email your thoughts and opinions to that fine email address right there on your screen, statelines@pbsnc.org. I'll read every email. I'm Kelly McCullen. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting PBS NC.